What's up, guys? Hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to the first solo show of the podcast. Thank you for coming along with me today. And today, we're talking about something pretty fucking cool. So, the day that we put this out, we're filming today on Sunday because the first trailer came out for the Snyder Cut. And the day that we pumped this out on the 18th, 1 month from then, so 1 month from today that you're watching, Zack Snyder's Justice League will finally be released. And this is a video, this is a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And as a hardcore DC Comics fan, it's honestly quite surreal that we're actually going to be getting the Snyder Cut. So I'm making this video because I know there's a lot of casual fans out there that really haven't read a whole lot of comic books, haven't really been following what the Snyder Cut is, and just really need a better understanding of what this is, right? Because this is a lot more than a director's cut. This is a lot more than just an extra 15 or 20 minutes. The train wreck of a movie that we got in 2017 was 2 hours long, and this movie is going to be 4 hours exactly. So there's a lot to cover. There's a lot more than just being a director's cut. I'll make this as simple as humanly possible. I know we've got a whole stack of stuff here to get through, and we will for sure, but I want to make this as an introductory video, as an all-encompassing video for people who really haven't been following what's going on so that you guys can be aptly prepared as you need to be when Zack Snyder Justice League comes out and you're not just completely lost, because there's going to be a lot in that movie from what I have heard and what I've been thinking. That being said, before we get started, I will not put any spoilers. Again, this is for casual fans, for the hardcore people out there. Like, you're already following it up to this point. You already have heard and read everything that I have. There's no reason to retread over that and possibly spoil things for the movie. Only things I'll be talking about are things that have been publicly announced, publicly talked about either by the crew, the director himself, Zack Snyder, or various actors on social media platforms. All right. So first of all, what is it, right? What is Zack Snyder's Justice League? And so basically what this is like the biggest director's cut that's ever been made, to my knowledge. Basically what this is how did we get here, right? So in 2015, they were filming Batman versus Superman. And upon completion of that film, they rolled directly, I think less than 60 days later, they rolled directly into filming Justice League. BVS came out, a lot of people loved it, a lot of people hated it. And Warner Brothers freaked out. And they're like, okay, we need to reshuffle and revamp, and we kind of need to figure out how to edit Justice League to the audiences rather than sticking with the original vision. Zack Snyder, on the other hand, is filming his Justice League, and he's kind of just moving along as he's moving along, and they give him notes, and this is all speculation and rumors at this point, but essentially he's like, fuck it, I'm going to make my movie, and if they don't like it, whatever. Until they force me to stop, I'm going to make my movie. Well, they continue making his Justice League, and unfortunately, there is a family tragedy in the Snyder family. I believe in May of 2017, April, May of 2017, there was a family tragedy, and it is not until about June, maybe it was March that it happened, in that time period, and it wasn't until about June that Zack Snyder decided to say, hey, you know what, I need to step down for a bit, I need to check my levels here, there we go. I need to step down for a bit. I need to be with my family. I can continue this. So Warner Brothers said, okay, that's fine, but we have a deadline to meet and we have money we need to make. So therefore, we're going to bring in Joss Whedon. And for those of you who don't know who Joss Whedon is, he directed the first two Avengers films. He directed Firefly. He used to be very respected in the comic book nerd community, but that quickly got diminished after this movie, and most recently with some very sketchy things that are happening behind the scenes in Justice League that have come out via Ray Fisher and some sexual harassment stuff from the set of Firefly. So that's a whole nother video. Anyway, so they bring Joss Whedon in and they're like, all right, man, listen, you've got about 3 months, because it was June, July, August, September. Okay, so you basically got 3.5, 4 months, because the movie came out in November and you have to still like edit it and post-production, all that. You have about 3 months to basically reshoot more than half of this movie, rewrite more than, I think he wrote at least 1/3 of the new script that got put out. And you need to add humor, you need to make it more Marvel-like, and then you also need to make it 2 hours or less. And that is including credits, including a post-credit scene. And the theory behind that was that the less runtime they have, more more showtimes they can have, more tickets can be sold, people in the seats, but that flopped because the movie absolutely bombed in the box office in comparison to what they spent on it. So they're creating Justice League. Zack Snyder leads to do a bunch of reshoots, and they completely just botched the movie. If you watch 2017 Justice League, it's a Frankenstein monster of a movie. They had to bring back Henry Cavill for reshoots, and he was currently filming Mission Impossible Fallout at the time, where he had a very big mustache. And so whenever you watch Justice League, a dead giveaway for what a reshot scene is a CGI just monstrosity on his face because they had to digitally remove the mustache, and it just looked like this monster face. It's absolutely horrible. And so the movie comes out, and there's a lot of most people hated it. And the hardcore DC fans are like, okay, you guys gave us Batman versus Superman, and there was no follow-up to it, with the exception of just Superman coming back after he died in that movie. There was no revisiting of the nightmare scenes, which we'll get to later what that is. There's absolutely no Darkseid. There's no Apocalypse. There's no there's no follow-up from that first movie. And then now when we go into Justice League, these characters are absolutely cut it off the knees. Batman's character is sacrificed the most because it's not who Batman is. Ezra Miller's Flash is a horrible comic relief that a 5-year-old wrote for. Cyborg kind of just broods through the whole movie, doesn't really have a purpose. Aquaman is just this bro dude surfer that doesn't serve a purpose. Wonder Woman is shallow, and the only thing cool about Superman is that he smiles. But even then, half the time that he's smiling, he has a fucked up face. So what are you gonna do? But immediately after the film's release, there's almost immediately rumors about what happened on behind the scenes, and then there's a term that goes on. There's a different version of this movie somewhere. There's a different version of this movie, and quickly it becomes the Snyder Cut, the Zack Snyder cut of the film. And there's people in Warner Brothers that deny it, AT&T that deny it, there is no Snyder Cut, whatever. But then Snyder himself gets on a social media platform called Vero, and he starts saying, yes, there is a Snyder Cut. I have it. It's ready. It's just a matter of if it can ever get released. And this kind of just carries on. There's various rumors that happen that I won't get into because now that we are getting it, there's possible spoilers. There's rumors that go around about what scenes they might have shot, what scenes they didn't shoot, what could have happened at the end of Justice League, what did Justice League 2 and 3 look like, what are all these things that Jim Lee did with storyboards, all these things. And then finally, one of the biggest news breaks, I believe, was in 2018. When Jason Momoa went to Snyder's house and gave him a camera, and Snyder reportedly showed him the Snyder Cut, and Jason Momoa put on his Instagram that it is real, it is legit, and that we need to, quote, fucking see it. Now everyone's like, okay, well, okay, now we have two people saying that it exists. What's the chances of us getting it? Flash forward to around November of 2019-ish, and there's rumors going around that we're going to get Snyder Cut, and there's rumors going on that we might do it. Doesn't come during Christmas, doesn't come during any of that, but then finally in I want to say May of last year, Zack Snyder himself, he does a screening of Man of Steel on Vero, a live stream with some fans. They have an afterwards Q&A. Henry Cavill hops on the Q&A, and at the end of it, he reveals that Zack Snyder's Justice League will be coming to HBO Max in 2021. Everyone loses their fucking mind. So now the big question is, Zack Snyder has spent the better part of 3 years posting all over his social media about all the things that he may or may not have shot, may or may not have written and directed. But now that it comes time to release this movie, does he actually have it? Whether or not he has it, I tend to believe that he does, because the two trailers that we have gotten thus far have been phenomenal. They look like a completely different movie than what we got in Justice League 2017. It's still going to be the Justice League versus Steppenwolf, and it's still going to be that timeline, but it's going to be shot a lot better, told a lot better, and be a lot more character development and stuff like that, which we'll get into in a little bit. And there's just going to be a lot more context to it. And even if we did keep 100% of what 2017 Justice League was, we still have 2 hours of movie that we don't know what's going on with. And Zack Snyder himself has said that only about a third of the 2017 movie is what he shot. So we might keep like 45 minutes of a 2 hour long movie. So that means we've got roughly 3 hours, 3 hours, 15 minutes of a film we've never even seen. So that's going to be interesting to see what that turns into. So before we carry on, though, why is this important for the film industry? This has never really happened before. This has never really happened where, and I believe that it really did take the pandemic for this to come to fruition. Never really has it happened where a movie has been able to get resurrected, pretty much, B, have the same director come back and finish it, have cast come back to do additional photography and reshoots, which they did last October. And they've never really, like, originally their budget to finish the Snyder Cut was it was $20 million to $30 million. About 2 months ago, it got reported that now the real budget for it was $70 million, and that's on top of the $300 something million that they already had for the first Justice League. They're pumping almost $400 million in this movie in total. And Zack Snyder also revealed that he's doing it for free, which is interesting. So we'll see. But it's super important because this kind of opens the door. Well, I would say it opens the door, but I guess it should show film studios that if they hire a director, let them complete their vision, right? Let them finish and let them create what they wanted to create. Don't hire directors to be a pawn. And so we'll see what happens, but this is a super important project for the film industry as a whole, not only just the DC Comics fans. All right, so what should we expect, right? What do we expect from the Snyder Cut? Well, the truth is, I don't know. I have theories. I have speculation that I won't get into just because, again, I don't want to spoil anything if it turns out to be right. But at a bare minimum, what I can tell you guys to expect is a continuation of the Man of Steel movie and Batman vs. Superman. And in all honesty, if you don't like Man of Steel, if you don't like Batman vs. Superman, or you don't like Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition, which is what you should watch if you haven't seen it. It's a great movie. You're not going to like this movie. I'm going to go ahead and say you definitely check it out because this is a very interesting project at a bare minimum. I think everyone should go watch it. But you probably won't enjoy it as much as someone like me who really did enjoy Man of Steel, who absolutely adores Batman vs. Superman and adores these characters. You're probably not going to enjoy it. That being said, we're going to see a lot more character development out of Ben Affleck's Batman and Bruce Wayne. We're going to see a lot more out of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman as they're trying to put this team together. Cyborg has been said to be the heart of the film, so we're going to get a lot more from Cyborg, which is going to be awesome. We're going to get a lot more from Arthur Curry, and we're going to get a lot more from the Flash. And the Flash is going to play an extremely important role in this movie. Again, we'll give away why, but they showed some stuff in the trailers, but you can just pick it out. And if you're a DC fan, it's like, oh, that's that. That's going to be crazy. So we're going to get a lot more character development there. We're also going to get a lot more from the villains. In the 2017 Justice League, we only got Steppenwolf, who was just this CGI monstrosity, and he just trying to collect the mother boxes, and he lost because of fear or something. I don't know. It was stupid. But in this, and again, I can say this because the trailers showed it, we're going to get Darkseid. We're going to get Desaad. We're going to get Granny Goodness. We're going to get Apocalypse. We're going to get all these great things that have a huge, sprawling history in the DC Comics lore, whether that's the actual comics themselves, animated shows, animated films. Like, there is a lot to choose from here, which we'll get into a little bit later. But we're going to get a lot more from the villains. And there's an easy comparison to be made between Darkseid and Thanos from the Marvel movies. But whereas in the Marvel films, Thanos wanted to wipe away half the Earth to balance it and like save planets or save the universe, Darkseid, his motivation, let's get into Darkseid. So Darkseid, his motivation is he wants to destroy. He wants to show up and absolutely wreck shop, take over your universe, and destroy, and create it back into the image of Apocalypse, which is his planet that he comes from. And his main goal in doing that is finding the anti-life equation. Essentially, what the anti-life equation is if someone's exposed to it, someone looks at it, gets consumed by it, they completely become in control of Darkseid, right? They are his minion, absolutely, right? You lose what it means to be an individual. You lose what it means to be a person, and now you're just a minion, a slave to Darkseid. So that's his plan, right? And we'll get into more of that with Final Crisis and some more things that the trailers and the BVS has shown us. But yeah, so you basically just become a slave to Darkseid. So that's his plan, right? And he has his generals. So he has Desaad and Steppenwolf. And Desaad and Steppenwolf are basically just his generals. He sends them with some parademons to different planets. They probe the planet. If the planet is ready for takeover, for conquest, they go and they'll take it out. And that's why it's happening now in Justice League, because now that Superman is dead, Darkseid believes there really is no protectors for Earth. So he can now take it over. That's basically why he believes he can do it now. So he sends Darkseid and Desaad. He also has Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness is basically the general, the leader, the female Furies. And they're basically like this strike team for Darkseid. There's a whole history that I'm not going to get into, and maybe in a later video I'll get into like what the new gods are, the fourth world, and all that craziness. But like we'll touch on it a little bit later. But all you need to know is that she's a general and she's a badass and she's not to be messed with at all. And they showed her in the trailer, which is awesome. So we're gonna get a lot more villains. That being said, there were a lot of questions out of Batman versus Superman out of the desert scene, or what is now being called the nightmare sequence. And there was absolutely no lead up to it, or follow to it rather, in Justice League 2017, but now we know we're going to get it here in Justice League, Zack Snyder Justice League, after the trailers that we've gotten. And the nightmare sequence is something absolutely wild, and it is something that I can't even grasp right now because we don't really know what it's going to be. I have ideas of what it's going to be, but basically what this nightmare sequence is going to be is, so in Batman vs. Superman, for those who don't remember, Batman has a dream, essentially, or a vision, really, like a premonition, and he envisions a world that is completely ransacked and decimated by the forces of Darkseid. And Superman is now a minion of Darkseid. Batman's leading like a rogue force. Batman gets captured and betrayed. And Superman kills him. But before killing him, Superman says, "She was my world and you took her from me." And he rips out Batman's heart. And so it is believed that what we can assume is the death of Lois Lane, however that happens, led Superman to just going insane. He loses what it means to be Superman. Darkseid takes advantage of that. He succumbs to the anti-life equation, and now Superman is a minion of Darkseid, which obviously is no bueno. So that nightmare timeline is the absolute worst case scenario. Like, that's what happens when the Justice League fails. That's what happens if if our heroes don't beat Darkseid, don't beat Steppenwolf. That's what happens to Earth. It becomes this decimated land, and there's a lot of things you can go into with that, right? I mean, a lot of people had a problem with Batman using an assault rifle in BVS when they were doing that whole timeline. And my theory on that is just, well, if that's what the world has gotten to, there is no more Bruce Wayne. It's just Batman. And yeah, Batman's just trying to stay alive. So therefore, he's probably going to be able to use rifles because he's lost a sense of what it means to be Batman. So therefore, does that make him succumb to the anti-life equation? Possibly. Does that make him open to it? We don't know. We'll definitely see, though. What we do know about publicly published info is that they did reshoots. And those reshoots included, this is back in October of 2020, and it included Ben Affleck, Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke, Amber Heard as Mira, Ray Fisher as Cyborg, Ezra Miller as The Flash, and Jared Leto as the Joker, Henry Cavill as Superman. I feel like I'm missing somebody. I'm not sure. I think that's it. Anyway, and they were all filming nightmare sequences. And we've gotten a lot of promo pics recently of Jared Leto's Joker. And now, today with the trailer that dropped, we actually got the first interaction of this universe's Batman and Joker that we have seen. They have a very long history together. I mean, he killed Robin. We see that in Batman vs. Superman. We see that Robin case in the Batcave. But they have a very, very long history, but this is the first time we're finally seeing them interact. We never really saw them interact directly in Suicide Squad. It was just more of like that car chase scene. But now we finally get to see that, which is super awesome. And the capacity in which all of this is happening right now, from what we know, is due to the fact that Darkseid has taken over and some heroes have been wiped out or displaced or they're gone, Batman has now teamed up with Cyborg, the Flash, Deathstroke, Mira, and the Joker. And they basically have to fix this timeline. And that's be real interesting. That's all I'll say about it. But they're going to try to get into it. And that is going to be something super awesome. So I'm very much looking forward to what they end up doing with that timeline. That's going to be absolutely fucking bonkers. Like, I never thought we would ever get that in a comic book, let alone a movie. So that's basically what the nightmare is, right? It's the worst case scenario. So imagine in Age of Ultron on the Marvel side, when Scarlet Witch kind of got into Tony's head and showed them all dead on the rocks and like the aliens were coming into Earth and Captain America like grabbed Tony and was like, you could have saved us. That's basically what it is times a million, right? We actually see here a decimated Earth at the hands of Darkseid, right? So it's like, imagine if in one of the Avengers movies we saw people just disappearing. We didn't see Thanos snap. We just saw people like that end credit scene of Infinity War with Maria Hill and Nick Fury dying. If we just saw that just randomly in the middle of like Age of Ultron, and we're like, well, what the fuck is that? Like, how do we get there, right? So that's going to be interesting as well. And I noticed, this is a side note, I noticed at the end of the trailer today, Jesse Eisenberg got a listing. And Jesse Eisenberg was in Justice League. He made a cameo at the very end when he talked to Deathstroke. Really out of place scene about making basically the Legion of Doom or the Injustice League. But it'll be interesting to see what his capacity is in this film. If he's in the Nightmare timeline, if he's in the regular timeline. Either way, he has a big enough presence in the film to get a listing in the credits. Oh, and Willem Dafoe will be back too. Willem Dafoe will be as Volko in Justice League, which is going to be awesome to see as well. And then finally, I'd expect that we're going to get some lead in Justice League 2 or 3 by the end of this movie. I doubt that Snyder's going to let this just be a closed up thing. I'm sure he's going to leave this open-ended to like, hey, he's openly said that he has in his head where the story goes, just a matter of if he's able to make those movies. I don't want him touching every DC project. I mean, I'd like to see him do Man of Steel 2, but he should really just stick to the Justice League movies. I'd like him to be that overarching person, which would be awesome. Okay, so that's pretty much what Snyder Cut is, right? And what we're going to be getting into. Now, again, like I said, this is for casual people. What do you need to know? Because you can't go into this movie blind. You can't. That's just a fact. That's just a fact of life right now, is you cannot go into this movie blind. You're going to be lost. So with that being said, what is the bare minimum, right? The absolute bare minimum that you need to watch this movie, right? So the first is going to be Man of Steel. This is going to be the first thing you need to watch. This is the origin story for Superman in this universe. Great film. If you haven't seen it already, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but Man of Steel. Need to watch Man of Steel. Secondly, need to watch Batman vs. Superman. I suggest the Ultimate Edition. It's on HBO Max right now. There's a rumor right now that's getting a remaster for IMAX with some additional stuff too, on top of the 30 minutes this rated R version got. But yeah, this adds about 33 minutes of film, I think. Let's see if it says. 30 more minutes not seen in the theaters. So it just adds a lot more context to what happens in the movie, makes things make a lot more sense. Watch this movie for sure. And again, all these are on HBO Max. So if you just buy the subscription for like $15 a month, you can watch these and then watch Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I highly suggest Man of Steel. I only bring up Justice League from 2017 just to have a reference point of what just a piece of shit this movie is and how horrible this movie was. So you can see the differences between this and what we end up getting in next month. But I mean, I haven't seen this movie in over like a year, I think 2 years. I tried to watch it again, I think like in 2019. I couldn't get through 30 minutes of it because it's just such a piece of shit. So yeah, I mean, if you want a reference point to how amazing Snyder Cut's going to be, check this out, but like, don't go out of your way. And then finally, I only bring up Suicide Squad just so you can kind of get a point of reference again for Jared Leto's Joker. And then so you can kind of also see like the post-credit scene, because that post-credit scene of Bruce Wayne meeting Amanda Waller, getting some info on the Justice League. That'll obviously play into Justice League, like the members of the Justice League. So, I mean, just go on YouTube and look up the post-credit scene. I don't like this movie by any means. I think the writing is very clunky. I think there's some cool character moments, and I think the characters look cool. But, like, there's next to nothing that redeeming about this movie. I mean, there's really not. And I hate saying that. I'm going to lower this, actually. Make my life a little easy. Okay, there we go. So I should have done that like half an hour ago. So yeah, there's nothing really redeeming about this movie. I mean, there's some cool character moments with like Batman and the Flash and some of the villains, but like, I kind of regret. I don't know. I regret buying this and Justice League, but I'm a collector and I'm stupid. So those are the movies, right? That's what I suggest movie-wise you should watch. I guess there's one more. It's called Justice League Apocalypse War. If you kind of want to get, it's an animated film. It's about an hour and a half long. Very, very good. If you go into that blind, I mean, you'll think it's cool, but like you won't know the backstories. There's like a whole DC animated history that I might go into in another video, but like basically with that, you can watch that for like, it's very violent, first of all. It's rated R. And Justice League, Snyder Cut Justice League will be rated R too. But Apocalypse War is very violent and it's very good too. It'll give you a vibe of what Snyder Cut is probably going to be like. Don't set your expectations basically on the story beats, but like, just give you a vibe of what it's going to be like. Okay, so let's say you want to do a little bit more than that, right? You want to watch a little bit more than Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, the last couple scenes of Suicide Squad, and you want to read some comics. Comics are fucking dope. Comics are fucking dope, man. So, if you want to read some comics and you really want to see the source material of what these characters are like, what their motivations are, or why they're written the way they're written, that sort of deal, and really what Snyder is going for, I picked some comics out of my personal collection that I think you should read. I know these bottom three are kind of intimidating. You don't have to read all of this for Snyder Cut by any means. You do not have to. I'll pick out the necessities from here, but if you wanted to go above and beyond and really just go head first into some really wacky comics, this is probably your best place to start. So the place I would start first is going to be the death of Superman. And the reason why I bring up the death of Superman is because this is what they basically did in Batman vs. Superman. And this kind of just shows you how Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday. I mean, it's a great book. Like, you can't get much better than that, Really great book. And this is a lot of fun to read. I remember I bought this. Well, I bought the trade paperback a long time ago and read it in a day. And I turned right back around to the comic book store and I bought the sequel. So there are two sequels to this. It's The World Without a Superman, The Reign of the Supermen. And, I haven't talked about the black suit yet, of course. So Superman's going to get a black suit in this movie. And that's from The Reign of Superman, I believe. Now, I don't know if they're doing it just because it's cool and they're making a homage and a callback back to the book, or if this is going to serve the purpose in the movie that it serves in the book. And I'm not going to go into what that is because of possible spoilers, but it's badass. So if you want to read the entire death, return, and reign of Superman, this is the place to start. Death of Superman. Then you want to get into the world without a Superman. Then you get into the reign of Superman. Reign of the Supermen, where basically three people show up. They're not really Superman, but they're kind of Superman. And then Superman shows up at the end with the black suit, and it's a whole thing. Then you're going to want to read this. The Dark Knight Returns. This is my personal favorite version of The Dark Knight Returns because it's in black and white. And it very much suits this version of Batman by Frank Miller. This came out back in the 80s when comics were still kind of campy and corny a little bit, and especially Batman. And Frank Miller really turned the tide of what Batman can be, and he made it into a very dark, gritty feature story of Batman, right? I believe he's like in his 70s at this point, but he's just this absolute beast of a human being. And the inspiration for Ben Affleck's Batman really did start with this book. And we got a glimpse of it in Justice League, the trailer we got today, but this giant tank right here, that's where that came from. I'll figure out how to do better effects down the line, but this is the best you get, sorry. So if you really want to understand like what kind of an older Batman that Ben Affleck has been going for and what Zack Snyder wanted, this is the best place to go right here. It's a Dark Knight Returns. It has sequels, and sequels are fine, but this is it right here. He kind of does Superman dirty in this story, but thank God they didn't adapt this version of Superman because it'd be horrible. Okay. So if you want to get into the Justice League, right? And you want to get into like specific to this version of the Justice League, there's a bunch of different Justice League stories we can get into. I mean, one of my personal favorites, the Grant Morrison run in the 90s. That's a great Justice League. Wild and wacky Justice League, but like very cool. But for this specific telling and for this specific movie, I suggest the New 52 run of Justice League, starting with Origin Volume 1. I think this hardcover is out of print, but I'm sure you could get the trade paperback at like a Barnes and Noble. And then this was also adapted into an animated movie. Pretty faithful to this, honestly. And it's just a great story. This shows how the Justice League got together. This shows a first invasion of Darkseid. They just go right off the bat, right into Darkseid. Darkseid shows up. And it's very basic. It's nothing close to what Final Crisis is. But it's very basic. Darkseid shows up with a bunch of parademons, and the Justice League have to beat him. And then also what's important here, too, is this is the first comic that we got where Victor Stone, Cyborg, is getting his origin story from a mother box. So that's very important. So mother boxes basically is what Darkseid uses to get into different planets, right? Mother boxes contain power, but they also have the ability to open up boom tubes. The boom tubes are basically these teleportation methods that Darkseid and his generals use to go from planet to planet. So, yeah, if you want to get into some real basic Justice League stuff, some real basic Darkseid stuff, this is definitely going to be your way to go. I will say that from the looks of it, Darkseid's design is going to be a lot more classic. Or not classic, I'd say like mid-2000s. A lot more akin to like this Darkseid rather than that Darkseid, although they're both very cool. This just gives you a very basic rundown of Darkseid, how the Justice League are able to beat him, and it's a really cool book, really well drawn, and some of this art is just mind-boggling how good it is. And it's written by Jeff Johns, who's kind of a dickhead apparently behind the scenes, but I mean he's a great comic writer, so what are you gonna do? I think Jim Lee actually did this art. Yeah, Jim Lee did the art for this. And Jim Lee also did the storyboards for Snyder Cut and like future Justice League movies. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So that's pretty much the basic comic reading you want to do, right? If you want to get a more in-depth look into what this world is being inspired by, right? So you kind of understand why these things are happening the way they're happening, or why certain characters might be acting a certain way. These are going to be your big ones, right? So Final Crisis, Lives Injustice. Yeah, so Injustice and then the Fourth World. Oh my God, great stories. So Final Crisis. So mind you, these are omnibuses, right? These are not like, if you want to read these stories, you have to read all of this stuff by no means. For instance, there's a trade paperback that's maybe like that big, maybe, of this Final Crisis, but this is like all of the tie-ins, all of the different side stories, just all the insanity that really went into making Final Crisis. Yeah, this is a $150 book. You don't have to buy this to like get into Snyder Cut by any means. But this is just an absolutely bonkers crossover. I haven't read this in a very long time, and I'm definitely going to reread it before we start up Snyder Cut. But this is basically just Grant Morrison being the madman that he is. And, I mean, I'm not even going to attempt to break down Final Crisis in this video because I don't want this to be a 4-hour video. But basically what this story will show you is the introduction, the first major introduction of the new gods to the main continuity of the DC universe, and also shows you, I think a big thing to pull away from this is going to be for like the power of Darkseid and also what the nightmare sequence could be. Meaning that so Darkseid is able to get the anti-life equation and he transports it over the internet, right? So everyone with a smartphone, everyone with a laptop, everybody with a tablet, even like screens on an airplane, right? These people are exposed to the anti-life equation. And what happens is they all, like 3 million people succumb to Darkseid across the world, right? So now what ends up happening is I'm going to throw a lot at you guys, and I'm sorry, but this is kind of just like tidbits. So what happens is the Flash, Wally West, and Barry Allen, they run into the future because Barry Allen's been running away from death for the past 38 years, which is a whole other story. And they accidentally run like a couple weeks into the future, and they basically see what's going to be the nightmare sequence in the Batman vs Superman and Snyder Cut, but they see like the comic version of it. And it's not a desert wasteland, but it's just absolutely like taken over a world by Darkseid. The skies are red, and a bunch of people succumb to the anti-life equation, Wonder Woman being one of them. And so yeah, that's what that's going to end up being. So it just kind of shows you the scale, right? The scale and power of Darkseid. And it kind of just shows you like a little backstory to like why the new gods are so important and stuff like that. So Final Crisis is dope. Again, pick up the trade paperback. It's maybe like $25, and it's about like that big, maybe like 300 pages. It's a really easy read. I wouldn't say it's like your first comic if you're new to DC, because you're not going to understand what in the world's going on by any means. But if you have a decent understanding of these characters, or you just really like wacky stuff, Final Crisis is a good place to start. So the reason why I bring up Injustice is simply because, again, of the nightmare sequence. So in Batman's nightmare, he sees a totalitarian version of Superman, right? He's a minion of Darkseid, but he's very obviously commanding his own team of soldiers. And so that's directly inspired from Injustice. And so what happens in the Injustice story, so Injustice is actually a video game made by the guys who do Mortal Kombat. But they made a comic spinoff, and the comic is honestly one of the best. It's my personal favorite when it comes to Elseworld stories, like non-canon stories, just like DC stories. And this is my favorite for sure. So basically what happens is the Joker, he plants a nuclear bomb in the middle of Metropolis. And then he also distracts Superman, and he makes Superman, he poisons him, and he makes him believe that that Lois Lane is Doomsday. So Superman, out of fear, kills Doomsday, right? Takes Doomsday into the atmosphere and kills him. But in reality, it's his wife, Lois Lane, who's pregnant with their, like 4 months pregnant with their kid. Superman realizes what he just did. He goes absolutely insane, and he flies back down to Earth and kills the Joker. And that's when he finally loses it, right? He's like, I've been the Boy Scout for way too long. It's time for me to like use my power to actually fix this world. So he becomes like this totalitarian ruler, and Wonder Woman aligns with him, and some of the supervillains align with him. But then Batman's like, hey, that's not cool. So Batman becomes the like an insurrection leader. And they basically come to the head, they butt heads, and you get Injustice. You really only need to read like year 1, which is like 12 issues. If you love it, I highly suggest getting the omnibus, because this is great. I've got volume 2 coming in at some point. Just the service I use is being super slow. But I mean, I've read all of this when it came out. Like, I have all the singles. Like, that's how good it is. Like, I have all the singles, but I bought the omnibus to reread it easily, because this is just one of the best DC stories I've ever read in my life. So I highly suggest Injustice. Great story. So I've only read a little bit of this, but this is Jack Kirby's Fourth World. And this is a collection of everything that Jack Kirby did when he hopped from Marvel to DC. And he basically created what we have now as the Fourth World, with the new gods, Darkseid, Orion, Allfather, Granny Goodness, Mr. Miracle, a bunch of crazy stuff. And admittedly, I haven't read all this. I kind of find some of the Golden Age and Silver Age stuff kind of tough to get through sometimes. But, I mean, I'm going to get through it eventually. I'll probably crack into this after I finish up Final Crisis. But the art is awesome. I know the writing is great. And, yeah, this kind of just like, this is by no means needed, like, to my knowledge. This is not needed for Snyder Cut. But the reason why I bring this up is just because this is going to show you guys a better idea. Like, if you really have some free time on your hands, this is going to show you like the whole, I don't know how much time we're going to spend in Apocalypse during the Snyder Cut. I have no idea how much time we're going to be there, but this is really going to show you like why everything is the way it is, why characters. It's basically the same thing as the other two omnibuses that I showed you, but it'll give you a good idea. So yeah, that's how you're gonna prepare for Snyder Cut, right? I've shown you the bare minimum. I've shown you the extent of it. That's how you should prepare for Snyder Cut, so you're not completely lost when it's happening. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is the future, right? There is no guarantee we're getting Justice League 2 or 3. I would say there's about a 20% chance. However, a big thing that is going to sway the fucking suits up in Warner Brothers is if we support this movie. So you have a couple extra bucks to throw at it, going to DC, right? I'm obviously not sponsored by fucking DC. I wish I was. But like, I bought the Darkseid shirt. It's official, like, Zack Snyder Justice League merch. And for the love of God, like, I'm not going to tell you people how to use your internet. You pay for it. You do what you want. But when this movie drops, watch it, pay for it, right? Go on, obviously, HBO Max, get a subscription. Go on to Google. I believe it'll be on Google Movies. Should be on iTunes, and it might be on YouTube as well, where you can buy a movie on YouTube. Because the collective support for this movie is going to help, like, keep Snyder in DC. The dude visibly cares. And I love what he does. And I love talking to people who don't love what they do, because 9 times out of 10 I can turn them over and be like, well, this is why it's good, right? Because there's like the common conception of what DC is, and then there's like what really DC is, right? And sometimes they intermingle, but like Zack Snyder makes movies for comic book fans, and I'm not bashing on Marvel because Marvel's made some really great stuff. But at a bare minimum, Marvel makes movies for a general audience, which is smarter, obviously. But these are movies for people who like read comic books. And this is what I've been waiting for since I was a kid. I cannot believe we're getting Snyder Cut. I cannot believe it's happening. So I urge you, should you decide to watch the film, which you really should, buy it, right? Use your money and buy it. Invest in that movie so we can have a future with these movies. So we can have a future with Ben Affleck's Batman, Henry Cavill's Superman, anything that's kind of in limbo right now. Snyder directing a future movie. Like, this is how we push that forward. And on the opposite of that, and if you don't want that, then don't fucking buy it, right? Don't fucking watch it. Or if you watch it and you think it's the worst thing ever, review it, write a comment about it, right? Give feedback on it, because that's how we get better movies. I think it's about it for me today. Covered all my notes. I'm very glad I finally get to make this video, and I am beyond myself excited for March 18th for Snyder Cut. I still can't believe we're here. I can't believe it's happening. And I am just beyond myself enjoyed. I think I've covered everything that I need to cover. If you guys have any future questions about the Snyder Cut or anything DC Marvel related, please feel free to shoot me a message on the podcast Instagram or our Facebook page. We check those pretty regularly. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.